The knock was not polite or patient, it was sharp and furious, the kind that rattles the thin apartment door and makes a child flinch, and before he could even stand up from the worn couch where he had been helping his daughter with homework, the voice came through loud and unmistakable, yelling his name, followed by the words that felt like a punch to the chest. "You are fired." And in that instant his world narrowed to the peeling paint on the door, the sound of his daughter breathing behind him, and the sickening certainty that everything he had been holding together by sheer will was about to fall apart. Because this man was not lazy or careless or entitled. He was a single father who woke up before sunrise every day, packed lunches with careful portions, ironed his one good shirt, and worked overtime whenever it was offered, all while believing that if he just kept his head down and did his job well, life would eventually ease up on him. Yet standing outside his door was the one person he never expected to see there as boss. A woman from a world so far removed from his own that their lives had never truly touched beyond fluorescent office lights and polite morning greetings. A woman who had tried to talk to him before, had dropped hints in meetings and lingering conversations he had misunderstood or dismissed, because men like him did not get noticed for anything other than mistakes. And as he opened the door with shaking hands, ready to beg or apologize or simply accept the blow, he saw not anger, but something far more complicated in her eyes, frustration mixed with disappointment, and something that looked dangerously close to hurting as she stepped inside his cramped apartment, taking in the stacked bills, the secondhand furniture, the school drawings taped to the wall, the shoes lined neatly by the door. She realized for the first time that the man she had been managing on paper was carrying an entire life on his back, a life that left no room for subtle hints or unspoken meanings, because every ounce of his energy went into survival. And as she explained why she was there, why his missed deadlines and constant exhaustion had consequences, he finally found his voice and told her the truth he had never shared with anyone at work. About his wife leaving, about nights spent at emergency rooms and mornings spent choosing between gas money and groceries, about the quiet fear that lived in his chest every time his daughter asked if things would be okay. And with every word, the tension in the room shifted. The firing no longer felt like a punishment, but a collision between two human beings who had been failing to see each other clearly. And what followed was not an easy fix or a dramatic reversal, but a moment of raw honesty where dignity mattered more than pride, where compassion did not erase responsibility but reshaped it. And as the night stretched on and his daughter fell asleep, on the couch, unaware that her future had just teetered on the edge, the woman who had knocked, with anger, found herself sitting at a small kitchen table listening to a story that changed how she understood power, leadership, and care. And in that fragile space, something unexpected formed. Not romance born of fantasy, but respect born of truth. A connection forged under pressure, where she chose not to save him but to stand with him, to offer a path that demanded growth without cruelty. And as she finally stood to leave, the words "you are fired" no longer meant an ending but a beginning. Neither of them had planned, because sometimes the moment that threatens to break a person is the same moment that proves they were never invisible at all. And long after the door closed and the apartment fell quiet, the echo of that night lingered, as a reminder that humanity often reveals itself when everything else is stripped away. By morning, the apartment felt different, quieter but heavier, as if the walls themselves were waiting to see whether hope would return or disappear for good. And he sat at the small kitchen table, staring at a cold cup of coffee, replaying every word from the night before, wondering if he had imagined the softness in her voice when she finally said she understood. Because understanding did not pay rent, and empathy did not keep lights on. Yet something inside him refused to collapse the way it usually did after bad news. And when his daughter padded into the kitchen, rubbing sleep from her eyes, and asked if he was still going to work, he forced a smile and told her the truth in the gentlest way he could. That things were changing, but they would face it together. And later that day, his phone rang with a number he almost did not answer, convinced it would only reopen the wound. But instead of a final notice, it was an invitation, not to beg for his job, but to speak, truly speak, about what he could and could not carry alone. And when he walked back into that glass building where he had always felt small, he did not walk in as an employee scrambling to survive, but as a father determined to be honest. And the meeting that followed was tense and humbling, filled with uncomfortable silences and difficult truths. Yet it became the moment where expectations shifted, where flexibility replaced punishment, where the value of a man was no longer measured only by output, but by perseverance. And as weeks passed, he worked harder than ever, not out of fear, but out of renewed purpose, while she watched from her side of the desk, learning that leadership meant listening even when it was inconvenient. And their connection grew quietly, built on mutual respect rather than unspoken assumptions, until one evening months later, when his daughter finally met the woman who had once knocked on their door with fury, and instead found a steady presence who knelt to a level and asked about her drawings, the man realized that the night he thought he lost everything was the night his life began to change, not because someone rescued him, but because someone finally saw him. And that recognition became the foundation for a future shaped not by fear, but by dignity, resilience, and the simple, powerful act of choosing compassion when it mattered most. And in the end, the transformation was quiet rather than dramatic, unfolding in small moments that carried more weight than any grand gesture. Like the evening he tucked his daughter into bed and realized she no longer asked if everything was going to be okay, because she already felt it. Or the day he stood in that same office months later, not as a man on the edge of losing everything, but as someone trusted, valued, and finally understood. And when she stood beside him, no longer just his boss, but a woman who had learned the cost of assumptions and the power of seeing the whole person, there was no need to revisit the night she knocked on his door and shouted words that once felt like an ending. Because they both knew it had been the beginning of something far more human. A bond forged under pressure, shaped by honesty, and sustained by empathy. And as life moved forward with its usual challenges and uncertainties, he carried with him the knowledge that dignity could survive even the hardest blows, that resilience was built in choosing love over pride and truth over silence, and that sometimes the moment meant to break you instead becomes the one that teaches you who you truly are, leaving behind a quiet strength that lasts long after the door is closed and the echoes of fear have finally faded.